What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. Yesterday, we gave you the 10 toughest schedules in college football for the upcoming 2021 season. Now we're going to give you the top 10 easiest schedules. And when I say top 10, we're talking about the Power 5. We're not including the Group of 5 teams. Obviously, the top 10 would all be Group of 5 teams if we went that route. But we're looking at the easiest Power 5 schedules. And again, if you missed the video yesterday, I went through and told you all about how I have a point system that I use to do this, and you go back and watch that video if you missed it. And also, please help us out. Subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build this channel up like we had with the old channel and get this thing up to maybe 10,000 subscribers here pretty soon. So before we get into the top 10 schedules, I do have to apologize to the Pac-12 fans, and especially Stanford, because on the toughest schedules video yesterday, I did not include any Pac-12 teams. I'm going to be honest here. I didn't even calculate the Pac-12 at that time because I didn't think there's any way that a Pac-12 team could be in the top 10 toughest schedules. But I made a mistake, and I won't make that mistake again, because when I went through and did the Pac-12 and I calculated all the points for the top 10 easiest schedules, there was a team that should have been in the top 10 toughest schedules, and that team is Stanford. Stanford actually should have been in there at number 8, the number 8 toughest schedule in college football. And just take a look at this schedule. I mean, the only thing keeping it from being a top 5 toughest is the fact that they play in the Pac-12. They play Kansas State in the non-conference. They play Vanderbilt, who that also helps them out. The Vanderbilt's pretty terrible, but it is still a Power 5 team. They play Kansas State, Vanderbilt, and then also play Notre Dame in the non-conference. So how about that non-conference schedule? 3 Power 5 teams. If you count Notre Dame as a Power 5 team, 3 Power 5 teams in the non-conference. Then, of course, they play all the teams in the Pac-12. They don't play They do play USC, actually, week 2. They play USC out of the South. So you're playing the top team down there. Arizona State might be the top team. Utah, maybe the top 3 teams out of that division. It's kind of hard to say for sure what's going to happen in the Pac-12 South right now, but I'd probably put those 3 teams at the top. UCLA could be interesting as well. So this is a really tough schedule for Stanford. And again, I made a mistake, and I apologize. Also, this team would not have made it into the top 10, but they would have been an honorable mention. That's Colorado. Colorado has a pretty tough schedule. They play Texas A&M and Minnesota, 2 Power 5 teams in the non-conference. So also shout out to Colorado for a pretty tough schedule there in the Pac-12. But now let's get into the top 10 easiest schedules for this upcoming season. Again, I used the exact same point system that I used for the top 10 toughest schedules. And we actually have a tie at number 10. First of all, it's Missouri. Missouri comes in here tied at number 10. You look at their schedule, it's really not that tough. They do play Boston College in the non-conference. So that's a quality team, but we're not talking about a great team. Probably not a top 25 team. Maybe they're a top 25, but I kind of doubt it. They do play Texas A&M out of the West, so that's a pretty difficult matchup there. And they'll play Arkansas. So again, it's just not that tough of a schedule. And we have 2 SEC teams actually tied at number 10. The other one is Kentucky. Kentucky has a pretty easy schedule as well. They'll play Louisiana Monroe, Chattanooga, also playing New Mexico State. Yeah, pretty weak non-conference schedule. They do play Louisville. That's the one thing that keeps them from probably being in the top 5 when it comes to easiest schedules. They will play LSU out of the West, so that is a tough matchup there. Also Mississippi State, who I think is probably at the bottom of the West. So not too tough of a draw. But again, Kentucky coming in here tied at number 10. Pretty easy schedule, especially for the SEC. At number 9, we just talked about Boston College. They're on the list here for easiest schedules. They will play Colgate. They will play UMass. They'll play Temple, who was really bad last year. Maybe they turned around this year. I don't know. So that's 3 non-conference games. And they do play Missouri. So Missouri is a very respectable non-conference game. But overall, this is just not too tough of a schedule. They don't play Miami. They don't play North Carolina out of the ACC Coastal Division. So this is, Clemson's about it. Clemson's the tough team on this schedule. And it's why I think Boston College could surprise some people this year. This could be potentially 9-10 win team, maybe even better than that. I mean, they're going to have a chance to beat everyone, I think, but Clemson on this schedule. Very interesting. So, yeah, schedules do play a big part in that projection for that final record. Boston College, a pretty easy schedule. Number 8 is going to be Cal. And there are several Pac-12 teams on this top 10 list. They'll play TCU in the non-conference, a quality team there. Also Nevada, who's not bad out of the Mountain West. They play Sacramento State. They will play USC out of the South. They play Arizona, who I think is the bottom team out of the Pac-12 South. Also Colorado, not really sure what we're going to get from them. They don't play Arizona State. They don't play Utah. So a pretty easy schedule here for Cal. And, every team is going to have at least one game in the non-conference. You say, well, what are you talking about? Cal plays TCU. That's a quality. Well, every team plays that. And we're looking at the easiest schedules. Not saying that any schedule is full of cupcakes, but these are the easiest schedules this upcoming season. Number 7 is going to be Oregon. Even with Ohio State, they still come in here at number 7. Pretty easy schedule for the Ducks. Yes, they play Ohio State, but then they play Fresno State and Stony Brook. And we talked about this yesterday on the toughest schedule video. When you're at the top, you don't get a chance to play the top team. So in the Pac-12 North, they're not going to have a chance to play. I have Oregon as a Tier 2 team. There are no other Tier 2 teams in the Pac-12 period. So you don't have a chance to get a game like that. And it's one of those things that kind of penalizes the top teams, but it just is what it is. They don't play USC out of the South, so that works out pretty well for them. They also don't play Arizona State. So a pretty easy schedule. Ohio State's the one thing that, again, does make it keep it from being a top 5 easiest schedule, but still very easy schedule for Oregon. That's why I think they're probably the favorite in the Pac-12 North. At number 6, we got Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh will play, look at this non-conference schedule, UMass, Western Michigan, New Hampshire, and then Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, I'm sure when they scheduled it, they thought that would be a pretty good game. An SEC team, playing them on the road. But now that Tennessee is kind of falling apart, that becomes a pretty easy game. A game that Pittsburgh's probably going to be favored in. And so that is just not a very tough non-conference schedule at all. The one thing that keeps their schedule from being just, really, really easy is the fact that they play Clemson out of the Atlantic Division. And, of course, they will play North Carolina and Miami out of their division. But, yeah, they play Clemson, and then they play Syracuse, who might be the worst team in the Atlantic Division. So, again, a very nice schedule for Pittsburgh. Maybe they make some noise this season. Going to number 5 now, we stay in the ACC. It is Duke. Duke will play Charlotte, North Carolina A&T, Northwestern, and Kansas. Now, Kansas we know is the worst team in the Big 12 by far. Northwestern had a great year last year, won their division, went to the Big 10 championship game. I don't expect them to be at that level this year. When you look at everything that they lost, this team is going to drop off, maybe even significantly. But it's still a Power 5 team. And then you look at their schedule in the conference. They don't play Clemson. That's the big one. They do not play them out of the Atlantic Division, and that is going to make this schedule pretty easy. They'll play Louisville, and they will play Wake Forest. Those are your 2 teams out of the Atlantic. So a nice schedule for Duke, a team that when I look at their roster, I'm a little worried if I'm a Duke fan, but at least you got an easy schedule. Number 4 is Washington. Washington out of the Pac-12. They will play Montana, Arkansas State, and Michigan. That doesn't sound horrible. Michigan, a Power 5 team, maybe a top 25 team. Arkansas State's a pretty good team out of the Sun Belt. But when you just go through the entire list here and you add up all the points, it's just not that tough of a schedule. They don't play USC out of the South. They do play Arizona State, but they do not play Utah. They don't have Utah on the schedule, who I think Utah might be the second best team in the Pac-12 South. I really like what I'm seeing on this Utah team. Arizona State's in that discussion as well, but like I said, it's just not too tough of a schedule, and you're just not going to have any real tough schedules in the Pac-12 Conference because there aren't a lot of great teams. And so that's why Washington does wind up here at number 4, despite the fact that they do play a big non-conference game against Michigan. Number 3, just talked about them. There is Utah. They come in at number 3. They have Weber State, BYU, and San Diego State. Now, if it was last year, that BYU game would be a big one. It is a big game, of course, the rivalry, but it would be a challenging game. But BYU lost a ton. This is going to be like a completely different team. Almost their whole roster is gone. So that's a game Utah should be favored in. San Diego State, I know they had some great years a few years ago, but they've kind of dropped off to being just an average Mountain West team. They will play Oregon, so that'll make it a little bit tougher. They do not play Washington, just talked about Washington. So again, just no big game in the non-conference, and again, a Pac-12 schedule that just isn't all that tough. Let's go now to number 2. Northwestern. Northwestern has the second easiest schedule. I talked earlier about how this team, I think, is going to drop off. Well, their schedule might give them a chance to be right back similar to what they were last year. They will play Indiana State, Duke, and Ohio. That is their non-conference schedule. Indiana State, Duke, and Ohio. A very, very easy non-conference schedule. They do not play Ohio State. They do not play Penn State. They do not play Indiana. I think those are the top 3 teams out of the East. They don't play any of them. Instead, they'll play Michigan State, Michigan, and one other team here as I look through the schedule. Michigan State, Rutgers, Michigan, and Michigan State. So you're not going to have to play the top 3 teams out of the East. You have a very easy non-conference schedule. It's really hard to look at this schedule and think that this is not the easiest Power 5 schedule, because this thing, I mean, it just does not get much easier than this. Northwestern, a very easy schedule. But number 1, we actually are going to go back to the Pac-12. The number 1 easiest schedule is Arizona State. Arizona State will play Southern Utah, UNLV, and BYU. That is their non-conference schedule. Again, if this was last year, the BYU game would be pretty tough, but I just don't think BYU is going to be very good this year. And then you look at just who they play in the Pac-12. I was actually surprised. I had to add this up a couple times. Because I look at this schedule and I look at that Northwestern schedule, and I think that maybe Northwestern's a little bit tougher. But no, when I put the point system to it, Arizona State did come out just a little bit easier. They don't play Oregon out of the North. So you're talking about not playing any Tier 1 or Tier 2 teams. And again, I will reveal those tiers at some point. I'll put a video out on that. I have USC as a Tier 3 team, so they will play them. But again, this is just not a very tough schedule. I think it's the easiest in the Power 5. Northwestern is definitely debatable, because when you look at that schedule, I think that's a little bit easier non-conference schedule, but the Pac-12 is obviously easier than the Big Ten. So I think ultimately that is what puts Arizona State at number 1. So we'll see. Maybe Arizona State can make some noise this year. Those are the 10 easiest schedules. I'm going to give you some honorable mentions. I'm going to read these off. And these were teams that were very close. And it was razor thin. When you talk about that number 10 spot, we had Missouri and Kentucky in there. There were some other teams that were just right behind them. I mean, you move a team up or down a tier, and it can completely change these rankings, because that's how close they are. So again, if you want to make an argument about one of these teams, you know, it's a fair argument. Otherwise, I don't really think anyone else belongs in this conversation. But those teams were Clemson, Wake Forest, North Carolina, USC, and Washington State. Those 5 teams were very close to making it onto this list. You know, Clemson plays Georgia. That's really what saves them. Everyone was already talking about how Clemson should be on this list. Well, that Georgia game, a Tier 1 game, gave them just enough points to where they did not get into the top 10. Wake Forest and North Carolina have pretty easy non-conference schedules. North Carolina does play Notre Dame. That helps them out just a little bit. Wake Forest plays, I can't remember who Wake Forest plays. They play Old Dominion, Norfolk State, Army. They play Army, and someone else there in the non-conference. But again, these teams were very close to making it. We had, like I said, USC. USC has a really easy schedule this year. Could have been in this conversation. Notre Dame, I guess, gave them just enough to where they do not wind up on this list. They don't play Oregon this year. USC actually does play Notre Dame and BYU, so a couple of quality non-conference games. And then Washington State. Washington State was close to making on the list as well. They play Utah State, Portland State, and then they also play BYU. BYU might as well just join the Pac-12, because they play a ton of Pac-12 teams this year. But that is how it turned out when we put the point system to these teams and these schedules. Let me know what you think. Do you think I got it right? Did I get it wrong? Who did I have too high, too low? Who should not even be on this list? You think their schedule is tougher than maybe I'm giving them credit for? Maybe a team had an easier schedule than I'm giving them credit for, and they should have been on this list. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.